Anton is joining me tonight. And what's exciting about this is that we are going to hear the male perspective and the impact that divorce has on a man. So as a woman, I've heard female perspectives, but I've never had anyone that's wanting, from a male perspective, to be honest and vulnerable in sharing their journey. And I'm quite privileged with the fact that Anton is willing to share the experience he went through and allowing us all to grow from it, which I find is liberating, because I know a lot of male friends of mine that have suffered from the upset of divorce, and something that Anton brought to my attention that is that 80% of marriages are actually ended by women, and the men don't even see that coming. And I would love to have insight on the impact that has on a man, but also possibly by you hearing Anton's journey, that you as a man, if you're watching this, how you can prevent these things from happening. Because I think for me, when I've experienced relationships that are ending, that they're events over time. They're not a huge big thing that's gone, no, this is it. It's, from my perspective, where I've ended relationships as a woman, is that I don't feel like things have landed on me and have been seen. And I'm really grateful that Anton is willing to share his journey, because I really want to hear a male's perspective, the impact that it has on the man. Because for me also too, I think I can hear from Anton's journey that how I can be a better wife to my husband. And I can see Anton clipping away. Hey Anton, here you are. So what I was just sharing, and I think you heard it, because I didn't know this fact, that 80% of marriages are ended by women. And that was startling to me. I had no idea. I didn't know that. And then somebody just said, oh, this is okay, it's happened to me. Is that I had no idea. And I was thinking, then I reflected upon my relationships, and I realized it wasn't one momental thing that made me end the relationship. It was like things that happened along the journey, and I felt like I wasn't being seen. And I don't know if that's your experience, but I would love for you to share, because I know that there's people that are here that are really wanting to know about your journey so that they can learn from you.
Great. Yeah, look, oh, thanks, Amberlee. Yeah, no, it's a big learning curve. So, so very briefly, I mean, I was married for over 20 years, or about 20 years of marriage, but I mean, we'd been together a few years before that. And we'd been friends at school at the age of 15, and actually like proper friends, not just knew each other. Then met again at university, and at about the age of 21 or 22, sort of got together, which is, these days, it's quite young. And so I was married just before I was 25. And it was really interesting as a man, like I really had no doubt too. Like I was just like, yep, this is the woman for me. And I was very committed, even as a young man. But my parents got divorced when I was about 14. And I really kind of just didn't want to ever have to go through that, basically. So I was quite, clear in my choice, I suppose. And we had a lot of things in common, very compatible. And as a result, to compress it a bit, we actually had a very harmonious marriage and a very loving, affectionate, all of those things. So, one of the things about my ex ending the marriage, like you said, it doesn't happen overnight, because firstly, there was no drugs involved, there was no alcohol, there wasn't the usual suspects, didn't have affairs, it didn't have a gambling addiction, I don't know, there was just all the, or abuse of any description, any of that, none of that. So it wasn't like, those things that are very common issues, obviously. And we were really very loving towards each other. So when it started to unravel, it was a bit like I was pretty confused, I guess. And, I got this like, I think you should go and see a counsellor. I was like, really? What for? And I'd been doing personal development. I'd done all sorts of that sort of a thing. So when it was finally like, we'd had a plan to move closer into Sydney, because I lived on the northern beaches at that point. Like, we'd been to London together and spent 9 years there, had the kids there, all of that. My ex went and got a flat in Cremorne, because the kids were then at school in Neutral Bay or Cremorne. And it wasn't until I said, oh, well, like, can I have a key? And she went, no. I was like, oh, okay. Like I was really a bit slow, because she was coming back on the weekends with the kids. They all had their sport still based up in Avalon and all of that stuff. And and also we were looking for a way through it, really. So so that statistic of 80%, I had heard that before, and I now understand why that's in many ways why that's the case, is that, as a man, we can be a lot less tuned in, I guess, to what a woman's going through, or we think we know because tend to be more in our logical minds very often as a man. So we'll miss a lot of cues, or we'll just not be sure, like, what is the problem around here? Like, you sort of go through all these checkpoints. It's like, well, the kids are great. We're this, we're that, we're this, we're that. Can you run this problem by me again? Okay. So anyway, so that was the thing. But I mean, now, people have asked me the question, obviously, over the years, like, what happened? I now can answer that, having gone through a whole lot of other things in that journey. Anyway, I'll stop there for a moment. Yeah.
I find it intriguing, and I think people are wanting to do, because foresight's a wonderful thing. But what, in your situation, what do you think, like looking back now, can you see the things that obviously that weren't connecting or weren't meeting? Because I think that can happen with us. I can give you an example right now. What's going really hard is my husband is grieving his mum. His mother's passed away. And so I have to constantly put my stuff to the side to make sure that I'm there for him, so that his grief, he's got somebody witnessing his grief. And I realized I wasn't doing that, and I have to do it, because if I want my relationship to keep channeling, sometimes I have to sidestep myself and make it about him as well. But I really love, and I expect everybody that's watching too would like to know insight on foresight, the foresight looking back, like you said, that.
Yeah, so I think there's always, so many factors in many ways. So I'm a chiropractor, that's my background. Okay, I also have, my online business and things like that. But we moved to London when we were 28 and already married, and had children fairly soon after that. And my ex stopped. I'll use her name. No, I won't. I just realised that's probably not ideal. My ex. Yeah, we sort of, she got a job there as well. I lined up a job, so I was working a practice, and it was a great opportunity, basically. I had my own practice in Sydney, and then after 3 years, it was like, we had this opportunity, so it was like, let's grab it before the kids come along, effectively, which was a very wise thing to do. And this is the early 90s too. And it was interesting because she worked for 9 months. Natasha, our daughter, was born, and she stopped working and went, well, and she'd already started wanting to be a writer, or started writing, not wanting to be a writer. And I was very much like, well, as long as I've got the income, I'm more than happy to support you. And I was brought up with a feminist mum who was a teacher, working mum. So it wasn't like I was very much not from that place of women are meant to be in the home. None of that. Like, my background was, feminist mum, her father who understood and really supported that. Really, he was a really very gentle, loving man himself, and all of that. And what's interesting about the 9 years in London, where she just did her own thing. She wrote screenplays. She did this. She got really enriched and fulfilled in that environment. And I did professionally as well. It was a great place to work. We just got to this point where it was like, well, where are we going to bring up the kids? Like, do we want English kids or Australian kids? Because that's, right now, they're going to be English kids. So we came back to Australia, moved to the Northern Beaches, and coming back to maybe a little bit what you've alluded to there, it really wasn't as good a fit. I mean, we both knew the Northern Beaches well, but from a cultural point of view, from supporting someone who wants to be a writer point of view, it was a bit like, she was quite isolated, because it was a long way from our friends to a certain extent. Whereas I set up a practice, and I was in my own little heaven. Like, I got to kind of like build the practice of my dreams. I literally had a practice like 100 meters from Avalon Beach. I could literally order a coffee, cross the road, check out the surf, see which board I should take at lunchtime, go back, pick up the coffee. Like, we're talking lifestyle plus, right? So, and I think one of the interesting things there, I mean, you might have had it with your husband grieving his mum, is there is that conflict with women of, as a man, when you're putting a lot of focus and energy into your work, they're always a bit like, there's always that pull, a bit like, hey, you're always in your work. I'm like, really? I walk in the door and I don't really talk that much about work. I mean, and so there was, and at the same time, it's like, where do you think the food in the table's coming from? Like who's paying the mortgage around here? Like all of that, like it's that constant pull. And compared to most men, I mean, like most people go, oh my God, like I worked a 4-day week for God's sake after a while. Like, what? I'd have Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Like, so but as a woman, or any partner, I guess, can start to feel unfulfilled in some way, and that will also leak into the relationship. Then if there's other things that are stress coming from the other person, it all just gets a bit amplified after a while. So it's always a two-way street, as you know. And then for me, there was a bit like, you're in business as a chiro. It was, there was a kind of more of a bit of a financial kind of roller coaster with it as well. And that is, a major stressor, as you know, like something like 70 to 80% of marriage breakups, money is almost at the top of the list of issues. So, and it's not like I can't earn money as a chiropractor, but you can create problems at every level.
Saying too, which is really interesting, what you're saying about your wife, that's what I found with my husband. I decided to stay at home and look after my son before I started doing the online business, and I felt resentment towards him. He was having a life, he was going out doing what he wanted to do. I saw that he was socializing with people and I was stuck here with the kids, and that's because I had lost things for myself. I'd lost my identity in that escape of what you're saying. And I find it really fascinating that you share that, and also about the finances, because my husband and I have taken on a different home, so therefore there's more responsibility with that home, and there's more things going on, and you can feel the pressure. I can see the stress upon my husband, because I have income coming in, but he has a higher income, and so therefore the weight is on him, and that's a huge weight. And then I see he's stressed about money, then I become stressed, and then it causes complications, like you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, anyone who's been in business, it's so different to a salary. Like it just goes up and down all the time. Like it's, I mean, you obviously get to certain base levels and you expect to earn X in a month or whatever. But, you're riding a little wave like this all the time. And, this was back in the 2000s and that sort of thing. And I think, with young, then we had my son, Alex, and children are expensive, especially if you're trying to do everything for them. And, they go off to their dance classes and their sport and they're this and they're that. And, we're running 2 cars and there's just, and it's Sydney, it's an expensive city, or Australia's a relatively expensive country, but certainly Sydney's an expensive city to live in. And there's, from my thing, as a chiropractor, there's, we all have these stuff in our head. And by the way, we're sold all this stuff all the time, which was, well, if I'm a professional and I've got X amount of income, I should have X, I should have this, I should have that, I should be able to go skiing, I should be able to go overseas, I should be like, la, 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 la. And it's like, yeah, but, can you actually genuinely afford this right now? It's not that you obviously, could afford a lot of things. And I'll be honest, if I'd put my wife more in charge of the finances, I think we would have been better off. I'm serious. I think I'm a very optimistic, yeah, we'll be right kind of guy. And she was actually naturally more conservative. So I wouldn't say it was due to her like going on spending sprees or any nonsense like that. And so I think for her, some of the stress was not being trusted around that. And, I've done a lot of, what I got into after the marriage ending was things like I got into dance, I got into tantra. I started to understand more about the masculine, feminine essence and dynamic and what makes a woman feel safe. So, and that includes having a stable home or feeling like her home's not going to disappear under her feet or whatever it might be. I mean, and feeling trusted in different ways. So I think there was sort of, subtle things going on there that eroded her so that she felt unhappy after a while, despite despite loving me basically, and me loving her back, which is, it was quite sort of, I guess it's quite tragic in that respect. It wasn't like, okay, well, we've fallen out of love, let's move on. So, so it made me ask very deep questions when the marriage sort of ended, basically.
Like, and it's interesting because I know that you've been on a personal journey development, but you did that. You really devolved into yourself and reflected upon you and expanded on you and looked at your personal development. And from my understanding, you told me that's what helped you get through it as well.
Yeah, and I think there's many sort of, you've got to, everyone's going to have their own thing that they kind of get drawn to, if you like. I mean, the first thing was taking the responsibility, because it was sort of a year of when she moved out and she'd come back on the weekends with the kids and la la la. It took a while to dawn on me, but I remember halfway through that year, like I was slow, right? Because like, okay. And also there was like, well, and the door was open for reconciliation too. She wasn't just, bam, I am like, this is totally over. Like it wasn't, she is, now I can see as a man or as a person, she was giving me like, can you step up here? Can you meet what it is that I'm asking for? And I didn't really have that capacity. I wasn't clear on what it was, if you like. I mean, I'm much clearer now, I would hope, right? And so it's like I thought I was trying. Let's just put it that way, And I mean, I had a great counsellor, and then we eventually went off there together. And the counsellor was like, "So am I counselling you two through a breakup, or are we trying for a reconciliation?" Like really, like bam. And I was like, "Oh, is that what we're here for?" Like it was. Anyway, interesting. So I had done lots of personal development work. Like I'd read Tony Robbins, I'd done this, I'd done that. The first thing that really shifted things for me was about maybe a year after it ended. Oh, by the way, I moved out of the home, moved my practice, like I just went, okay, I can't sustain this in this location with the overheads anymore. And my father died all in the same 2 months. Fun times. So like pretty traumatic. And then needless to say, you just get smashed in a business with that because you're just too distracted, So you can lose a lot of money very fast is what happens. When your overheads are here and you're earning this and then you suddenly go down to here, now your income's this. And if, when she moved out, we had $10,000 a month going out in mortgages and rent. Like, hello, that's $120K a year before you've turned on a light switch. So when I say you can have problems at every level, it's like, yep. Anyway, I actually got into 5 Rhythms dance. And I remember going to the first 5 Rhythms dance class, which is a dance meditation 2 hours thing. It was like a Sunday morning at 10:30. I remember after half an hour going, oh my God, you mean I can just do whatever I like and nobody cares? Like I can move my body however I like. I can, and there's like 60, 70 people in the room and there's lots of beautiful women, I might add as well, and beautiful men. But it was really began to help me connect back to my feeling body. And I was I was already a pretty warm feeling guy, but actually, it's like those conversations you could probably relate, Amberlee, when a woman goes, she's going blah, 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 and the man's like, and then it's like, what do you think? And as a man, you're like, oh, I have no idea. I remember Sunday morning pillow talk. It'd be like half an hour of this diatribe, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, I'm lost.
So I just tell him, you just need to listen. Don't give me any feedback. Just listen, yeah? And he likes that because I think he has to process it. And he's like what? I know, but there's a lot of women watching this right now. They're going, yeah, that's what their partner does too. So they yeah. We can talk.
There is a classic YouTube clip called "It's Not About the Nail." And I don't know whether you've ever seen it. It is just, you will absolutely, any woman or man should see this clip. There was a talk by the guy who wrote Women Are From Venus and Men Are From Mars, John Gray. He was doing a talk, it was actually at a chiropractic convention, and he put up this clip. It is hysterical. And in a minute and a half, it absolutely encapsulates this entire issue in a minute and a half. Very funny. I'll just say that, and just, it's not about the nail, and up it'll pop. It's got a zillion views on it, right? So So what the 5 rhythms did was begin to get me in touch with, oh, okay, like it's safe to feel, I guess. Because I was a very happy, like I was very much the I'm always happy kind of guy. Very, positive, which makes me easy to be around. But if something went a bit deeper or was more confronting, I guess, I didn't have as much capacity to know what to do with that. And as men, we try to go into logic around stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, okay. Or we're always trying to find the solution. So when the woman's talking, we're looking for where the solution is. It's like, there is no solution, right? It's irrelevant. And then I also, about that time, also got into just introductory sort of tantra, which is very much understanding masculine and feminine dynamics and essence and how we, within us too, not just, with another man or another woman, understanding what that balance is within us, and then how to sit with that for the other person and get into more of that flow. And those two things really were very, very powerful. Like the personal development's great, but you can do all that personal development and you can even do a lot of spiritual stuff and not get to that, because you can either intellectualize it, very easy to intellectualize personal development. Like if we all did the things we'd learned at our personal development courses, we'd all be freaking multi-billionaires, it's like, yeah, but we don't, right? We do some. And they're useful, but it's like, we've got to connect to our heart and our feeling body to embody things and actually create change in our behavior.
Because that's feminine energy, like talking about the feminine and the masculine. And we all struggle with that. This society is all logical. We're in here in the brain, which is masculine. And I know that is something that's brought to my attention as a mum, that you have to be in that feminine energy and that love, that heart, that space, that play. But it's also dads too, because my husband does it really well. When he comes home and sees my 22-month-old, he plays with him. Do you know what? He engages, he plays and has fun. And that's the feminine. And that's what I hear that the tantra is too. Like you're playing with yourself. You're learning to be in that essence of who you were when you were a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved children. I loved my kids and gave, there was a lot of joy basically having children. I was totally in there. I took them to sport and every concert and everything, loved the whole thing right from them being a baby. And that masculine feminine thing, it's, as a man, if you're in your masculine energy, it's about being present for the woman. So she can feel the strength of your masculinity and that solidity. And then the feminine side is the receptivity. It's being able to receive, right? And receive what the woman is talking about or feeling or just displaying in her actions and emotions. She's not always going to articulate everything. And just going, oh, okay, I see. And riding the wave. And also not taking it personally all the time, like it's just not always about what you've, as the man, have done, or the partner, have done. It's like, maybe it is, but often it's not, right? So I've really learned a lot about that capacity to hold space, I guess. And, my girlfriend now, she can go through all sorts of stuff, and it's, what I've built up over those years of diving into all this is the capacity to receive something from someone that isn't easy to hear, process it and go, well, how much of this is true for me and how much is maybe a little projection? I mean, because we've all got that mixture. Like we're not, like we're going to just have our perception of the world, right? And even if it's just like, hey, I hear you, I'm just going to sit with that for a moment before I respond. Like, just don't be reactive. Meditation really helps with that as well. The meditation is something else I've got into. To create that space. Like, let's just create a bit more space so that we've got the room to move. So it's not just basically.
So that's you got to you get a choice when you create that space. You have the choice of how you want to react. You can choose to get. If it's something that's angry, you can have that breath. Well, will I get angry or will I actually stop? And that's something I have had to really reflect upon with my son is like conscious parenting is about taking what you're saying, that reflection and not reacting, realizing that they are triggering something from the past from you and it's got nothing to do with you because your child is perfect and complete like they are. And it's really good that you're saying that, because I forget, I try to do meditation, but it is a meditation. The meditation helps you take that pause, and then to whatever, not your child. It can be any situation. It could be a workplace situation. It could be a disagreement with your partner. I think that's powerful.
Absolutely. I learned that from a chap called Ben Harvey, who I've done a lot of stuff with here in Sydney. He teaches, I did my life coaching course and various things, and he's very big on meditation. And funny enough, what got me into it was, the resistance there was like, I don't have an hour to sit there going, like that kind of idea. And it was like, start with 2 minutes. And I was like, yeah, I must admit, I've got 2 minutes. So I remember setting a timer and like, bing, it was like, oh God, that was quick. Well, that sucks. I want to go a bit longer. And I was like, oh, I'll go for 3 minutes. And then I was like, I think 6 is going to feel a lot better. And it was really interesting. It was just such a good way to get into it. But the point he makes about it, he said, meditation gives you the capacity to create that gap. So you're not a reactive human being. You respond to the world. You don't react to the world. So that's also been really powerful in the journey, if you like, with all of this.
Too is a big believer. Well, it's true. The law of attraction. I believe in it, and if people don't, that's fine. But I know my life is responsive to that. And I'm hearing is that you're saying about being, rather than reactive to the world, you can be responsive. And in that, you're actually co-creating the life and the reality and the circumstances you want as well. Like, it's creating it all. If you take that breath, that meditation. And it's also interesting you say that about meditation, because they say if you don't have time to meditate, you need to meditate. You don't have half an hour to meditate, you need to do an hour. And I suspect with your experience, and I know with mine, is when you meditate and things become a lot easier to do, and something that would have taken me, particularly I know with my page, like with my promotions of my product and what I write on Facebook, something could have taken me 2 hours to write, takes me half the time. And that's based because I'm in that space, I'm in sync with source, I'm with the divine, I'm a channel. Because I think everything that's created within us is something greater than us, and you have to be perceptive. It's like you've got an antenna on your head. And if you're in the right frame of mind, everything will download to you. But if you're not in that place, it'll go on to somebody else.
Absolutely. And I mean, as we know from meditation, it's to calm the chatter. And that some of which is useful, a lot of it's not at all useful, right? So to actually like create that space and allow, as you say, and I'm very much with you on all of everything you've said, like open up that, connection, our crown chakra and everything else, and really allow that, divine inspiration, if you want to put it that way, or you can just be as simple as just thinking more clearly and not, just like, you just naturally become more efficient. So, I usually try to do 20, 25 minutes, because that sort of is a nice amount of time without spending all day meditating. And it's a practice. That's the other thing. It's like doing yoga. It's like eating healthy food or going to the gym, whatever. You can't just do it once. It's the consistency that keeps tuning you in, really. And yeah, I wouldn't say I do 7 days a week, to be fair. But also, when you do it more frequently, you can drop into that space very quickly. So even if it's like taking time out for 2 minutes, all of a sudden you have the capacity to, like, what does it feel like to just focus on your breath and clear your head, and accept that your brain wants to do this, and then you just let it do that off in the background and go, yeah, and just come back to your breath.
Because we can get caught up in those thoughts that come up, and those beliefs, and that they chatter. But it's really good to hear that meditation, and I found it in my experience too, it's like you brush a feather against it and go, oh, that's just a thought, and it passes on. And it's like the pink elephant, that saying, they say, don't think of the pink elephant, and then you're suddenly thinking of the pink elephant. And when you give energy to your thoughts and those ones that you don't want to be there, it gives them momentum, and they keep turning around and around in that spiral. And they're still there 3 days later, even though if you just brushed a feather on it, it would have just kept on going by.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you talk about law of attraction. I know when I've listened to Abraham, whether I'm sure you know Abraham and Esther Hicks, you don't have to get into all this, but one of the things that they talk about was the other thing with meditation, and we don't need to just talk about meditation here, but the focus on your breath and bringing focus back. Abraham talks about 17 seconds. If you can hold focus for 17 seconds, you create this energetic shift. Like if you can visualize a goal and really put yourself in it, for 17 seconds without another thought getting in your head, you actually bring that so much closer into your, physical reality, if you like, because it's all there it's all there. These are all in vibrational escrow is her term, but just a possibility is literally that, a possibility. You can create it. You have the thought, you speak the word, you do the action, and stuff happens. But that ability even to just focus on your breath for that length of time is the same concentration that allows you later in the day to, as you say, wrap out a post or, move through a series of tasks quickly, because it's the ability to concentrate, and not in a thinking form, but in just a focus form.
This channel, but I also like the fact that you brought up visualization, that there's actually there is scientific proof that actually shows the difference like a visualizing has on your life. And Olympic athletes use it these days as their performance. If it's a 100-meter sprint, they go through it within their mind, how they're going to go through it and how it works. And it actually increases their performance. And I remember reading about this study about pianists. I'm going to say pianists, and that they're playing, and that they had 3 test groups, one that practiced every day, one that visualized they were practicing, and one that did completely nothing. And the one that visualized the practice, and they did brain scans on regards to this, and I suspect you've heard this as well, is that they'd actually using the same areas of the brain as those who were practicing, and that they saw the same improvements based on visualization.
Absolutely. I do know that study. It's a fantastic study. They said it was really clear, like all the neurological patterning for the people who just visualized, but they had to visualize it really, like properly playing or scales. The other one that was fascinating around this talking, is people that, like when it comes to athletes, but you could apply it to just your own body. Let's say you had a goal around your health, was people doing like bicep curls, and then and another group who just visualized and felt themselves doing bicep curls, and even though they weren't lifting any weights, their biceps got bigger. Like, whoa.
Evidence from people we're talking about health in regards of placebo, like they call it the placebo effect, and the people have been taking tablets, they were thinking it was the actual drug, and it wasn't the drug at all. And the visualization process that they did with that. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza has a lot of work on that. But we've gone off on a tangent.
Yeah, we have.
Bring us back. But it's good. Who cares? There's people watching. They love it. I want to ask about you and your kids, because you've got adult kids, like they're in their 20s. How do you, and this is good for me to hear in the future, how do you navigate that relationship? How do you still be a father and a friend? And how do you step away and let them have control? Well, I don't want to say control is not the right word, but you can see things that they might be doing the same things that you did in your 20s, but you have to allow them to have those experiences without, I love the term, helicoptering them, like being a helicopter parent.
Yeah, no, thank you, Amberlee. That's a great question, because as I say, I really love being a parent, and at every stage. And, it was really tough because my son was 12 and my daughter 16 when the marriage ended. And I mean, there's never a good age for the kids, by the way. But it was tough, and especially they didn't come and live with me, because it was actually there wasn't any custody issue. It was just a practical thing around where school was for them and all that. And so I saw them regularly. I still took them to sport and did all those things and watched debate, did all that stuff. There was no question my daughter, sort of 16 to 18, wasn't too happy with me. I think she was getting a little bit from the other side as well. I'll just say that. And then as we've moved into adulthood, I think it's really about respecting your children. So one of the things as they get, even in their well, you'll see it at every age, they'll blow you away with the kind of like stuff that comes through, and children in this day and age, you've got to remember, they're just exposed to so much. So they actually have access to a lot, like they've got a lot of information coming at them. So they actually know a lot, dare I say, depending on what their interests are, I guess. And like, there's a kind of wisdom that they have that you're like, wow, this is really, it kind of blow you away sometimes. So then as they've moved into sort of, you know, young adulthood, well now, you know, they're 23 and 26 now, it's, yeah, you just treat them more and more as an adult, but I guess it's an interesting one. Like, I had a conversation with my son today. So he's just gone back to, he's just spent 6 months in Amsterdam with his girlfriend doing a exchange at university. He's come back and he's looking for a job because he's only doing 2 subjects at uni. And I said, well, how's it going? He said, oh, I've been applying for these things. And he said, oh, I found this one where I can teach kids debating and presenting skills at school. They're at a school, or it's a company that does that. I was like, wow, that sounds cool. He said, yeah. He said, I realized that really excited me. Like, he's done drama and debating and all those things, right? And he said, I'm realizing I've done some office jobs, because he's gone out and worked while he's at uni and doing things. He said, I realized they don't light me up. Like, yeah, I can do them, but I'm like, and I was like, Alex, one thing I have learned, do what you love and love what you do. There are no prizes for waking up at 33, 43 or 53 and going, what the hell am I doing here? Like, life is seriously too short. Plus, you will get rewarded, probably financially, but certainly in fulfillment, way more doing something that lights you up, because you'll just be so much more engaged. People will realize that, and away you go. And I said, as for presenting skills, do you know what that skill is worth? It's like gold, man. Like, you've got to remember, 99% of the population would rather die than be on a stage. So that cuts out a lot of competition right there and then. And at the end of the conversation, he went, oh, wow, thanks, Dad. I didn't actually think you'd respond like that. And so with my kids, as they moved into adulthood, I just was very respectful of their choices. Like, my daughter was super academic, right? Like, ridiculous HSC score. She did the International Baccalaureate. Did a media and law at Sydney. But I remember at about year 11, 12, she went, Dad, what would you say if I didn't go to uni? And I was like, you know what, darling? You are such a capable human being. It really wouldn't matter what you did in life. You'll succeed at it. And it's like, that's all she needed to hear, not to, like, and then she just let it go. And off she went to uni. Whereas if oh no, you're going to go to uni, no daughter of mine, blah, blah. You know, if you get into that, now they've got something to fight against. And they'll fight, don't get me wrong, because they've got to exert their independence and their growing independence somehow. So if you keep, like, yes, it's good to have boundaries, don't get me wrong. But if you hit them hard, they will hit back. You know, and you suddenly realize, oh my God, they're not 3 years old, they're 16 or 18. They can just walk out the door, man, and they don't have to come back if they don't want to. So, you know, why go there?
One, you're talking about conscious parenting. Like, conscious parenting is about seeing your children for what they are, not what you think they should be, and that they have a safe space. One, to come to you, like, comfortably, like they can come to you and share what's going on within their lives. And no. My mum had that, but not my dad. I'd go to my dad. My dad would turn around. I know I wanted to be an actor, and he shut it down. He was like, no, you can't be that. And then I went off, like you said, I'm fulfilling careers, not where it is. And then in the end, I actually got back to where I wanted to be. And I think it's really important, like you're saying, and for parents to realize, is that we've got to allow our kids to go out and live their dreams. And I suspect the reason why your son feels the permission to do that is because, Anton, you've always followed your heart. Is that right?
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah. And, you know, I did relate that story. I said, look, when I, you know, in my gap year, I went and worked in a shoe shop in the city, and I actually had a lot of fun. It was great. It gave me the money to go to Europe and America for 5 months at the time, because the Australian dollar was $1.10 to the US. Yahoo! And, but I said, one of the things I got really quickly doing that job was, now I know why I'm going to uni for the next 5 years. Because I said, the pay that I get as a shop assistant at 18 is going to be exactly the same 40 years from now. Like, it doesn't change. There's no trajectory there. Or maybe manage a shop. So, and that was never going to be a thing, but it also taught me a lot of respect for people, you know, doing all those jobs too. So yeah, and so chiropractic was very much for me a head and heart thing. It's like, okay, you know, I've got this intellect. I was going to do economics law. And then I was like, yeah, something not quite right about that. And then I went, I actually just want to help people, but I want to know that I've helped them, like on the spot, as in do something. And they go, wow, that felt great. I go, good. Then they pay you. And then it's like, it's incredibly rewarding being a chiropractor or a healthcare practitioner because it's just so immediate in that respect.
I've gone to a chiropractor and immediately, I know there was one instance in my, like I was about 18, my neck was stiff, it was gone. And I went to my chiropractor and she's boom, like within moments. Like I would have married that woman. I would have had her forever. Do you know, like, but it's good to hear. And that's something I really talk about is of being service. Like it's really important to find a way that you can be of service to somebody else. And that's what your job is giving you. And that's why your heart is singing as well. Like it, and I really love the fact that you shared with your son that it's, about like the more you love something, the more passion you have, the more you do the things that you love, you don't have to worry about the finances at all. And I suspect that's been your experience with your career as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I'm moving on, you know, I'm also, you know, got you know, my other business going too, and that's been an interesting journey, you know, on how to, you know, connect with that and move out of being solely in the identity, in one identity too. So, you know, because that's, you know, we get very wrapped up in a particularly professional identity. I mean, when I say that, just your work and whatever description, you know, both as a man and a woman, I don't think that's exclusive to men by any means, you know, especially if you've trained in something or whatever. And, you know, you think how we talk, I am an accountant. Well, you're not. You're a sovereign being. You're a soul embodied in a physical form. You just happen to do accounting as one of the many aspects of your life, for example. So, but we get attached to these things. We get attached to all sorts of identities. I'm a mother, father, husband, blah, 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 you know, whatever. And, you know, all of that can actually get a bit in the way of, well, actually, what is my drive in life? And how do I want to be of service? Because I strongly agree with that. You know, coming back to that, basically.
Like my identity, you had to break those down. Those identities were wrapped up. I'm a mother, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm this and that. But really, they're just labels. Like they are really labels. And that's something I have to be conscious about, even with my son when he's navigating the house, because I know that his belief system's being formed. And what am I saying to him? Like, even if you're smart or you're this and that, I don't want those labels attached to his identity. And it's a really hard thing to navigate, you know, like very complicated. You think it's going to be easy when you have the kids. I suspect you were the same. Like, you know, it's easy, but then there's all these complications that come into play. And, you know, it's really beautiful to hear the fact that, Anton, that you've done it really well. And that through your experience, you've created these two independent individuals that feel that they can come to you and confess anything that's going on within their lives.
I think I wanted to come back to that point too, Amberlee, because it's that balance between them knowing that there's boundaries, knowing that there's, you know, morals and ethics and things, you know, we've got beliefs. I mean, they don't have to subscribe to them, but there's some fundamental ones, aren't there? You know, like do unto others as you would do unto yourself and all of that. And I've seen this play out more with my son than my daughter, because my daughter's a bit of she's certainly not a good little girl, but she's just one of those kids you just stand there in awe as a parent, like, and be just like, never like, have you done your homework? Well, let me have a look at your homework. Oh my God, I have no idea what that is. I remember when she was year 8 maths, she was doing like extension maths. I went, oh, you know, she said, oh, Dad, can you help me? And I started looking, I went, I've done maths up to first year uni and I am lost. But they were already doing like, by year 9, they were doing year 12 3-unit exam questions. I'm like, darling, you're on your own here. Anyway, but with my son, it's coming back to, you can give guidance, you can give boundaries, you can certainly, you're going to say, hey, there's going to be a bit of don't do this and don't do that. You've got to like, you know, kids will just go randomly all over the place otherwise, right? But as they get older, it's about them feeling that you won't judge them. And where this landed for me the most was at about the age of 16, 17, somewhere like that. My son had gone off to a dance rave that an old school friend had organised from his previous school. So he saw a whole lot of his kids from primary school, and I don't know. I'll just say it. Like, you know, he's not going to be listening. Maybe he will listen anyway. Sorry, I'll just say it because I think it's important to hear. It's such a big issue. Anyway, he snorted this thing, like, it's a horse tranquilizer. I can't remember what the slang term is, but anyway, like, it's not Rohypnol. Anyway, whatever it is. So he snorts this thing. He said the moment I did it, it felt like it bored into my brain. And he said I knew straight away I'd had too much of this stuff. He said it was like someone had fired a lightning bolt through my brain. And it makes you, it's like speed, basically. Like, he said I was like manic. And he said, I've basically thought I was Jesus and went around telling everybody. But the point was, his behavior was not good, right? He's the one telling me this. And we're sitting by a basketball court because we'd been shooting a few hoops. By the way, if you've got a son, if you want them to talk, go do an activity. None of this, darling, let's have a coffee. Tell me how things are. It's like, no, let's kick a ball. Now you'll tell me how things are. So anyway, and I was just listening. And he basically, to cut a long story short, he really felt massive shame. He felt he'd shamed himself in front of all these friends and old friends and whatever, who he hadn't wanted to appear that way. Like, he said, I was bad, like, I was not good, right? So he's telling me all this and revealing that he's had this drug, la, 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 la. And I'm just listening. And I basically went, okay, how do I respond to this? And I just went, well, tell me what you think you've learned from it. And he went, I just can't do chemical drugs. Like, they are just off. From now on, it's just over. I can't go there. It's so bad for my body. So instead of me going, oh, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. Like, because that's bullshit. They all going to do it, right? Like, and you know, when parents go on like that, it's like, oh, so you never drank alcohol as a teenager? Well, yeah. Maybe 1 in 100 did that. Like, good for you. And there's no, just like, let's stop bullshitting everybody, right? Okay. And I didn't do that sort of thing particularly. I mean, I did other things, don't get me wrong. And I just went, yeah, he experimented. All I care about as a parent, he's alive, right? That's number one. 2, he's standing here talking to me. Like, there's way worse outcomes here, right? You know? And I wanted him to come to the conclusion. Because if I just tell him what to do, it's like, well, it's like telling him something he already innately knows. It needs to come from within. And I think the point of it was the relationship that had been built up is one where of trusting that I am not going to judge him. I'm not going to slam him down. And it was like, you know, by age 16, they kind of know what's up, right? You don't have to tell them it's wrong. It's like, duh. And that's I guess the place coming back to your original question around them as they move into adults is to find that space in the relationship with your children. You know, and that's still a parenting role. I just did it in a different way. I just said, you tell me what you learned. You know, I want to hear from him. I want to know. Like, if he'd said, oh, you know, it was all just, and then I probably would have pulled him up a little bit more and questioned, but I didn't need to. And then we went back to playing basketball, and I don't think he's touched anything like that since. So there you go.
Found about that is that one, you're allowing him to process it himself, and he was able to find that it wasn't for him, and you were giving him the skills to manage experiences on himself by himself in the future. Like, he's regulating and he's doing what you, like we talked about in some way, the golden rule, what you do unto yourself, do it unto others. Well, he realized, you know, those values that you've been teaching him there, he's demonstrating them. He's absolutely demonstrating them. And then the wonderful thing is that you teaching him how to navigate this situation, one, helps in his life in the future, but helps your grandchildren too. Like, your future grandchildren, that help him to be a parent for them, because you open relationship. And there's so much extensive work and studies to say that when a parent shuts people down and lectures them, the child doesn't feel open and seen, and therefore in shame they go and do the things that you don't want them to do. But if you allow them to come and tell you what is happening, what's going on within them, there's an open door, you know, and that they can come back. And every time, if it doesn't matter what the situation there's honesty and respect between one another. And I think that's really powerful that you have that with your son. Now, I'm looking at the time, it's almost an hour, right? So I want to ask you 3 things that you would share with a man, like for a man or even a woman that's like they're going through the similar situation with you in regards of if somebody's told them that it's over. What are 3 things that you would give that were vital to help you through that? Even that just 3 things that you could say that can help them be sane in the situation.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get this out quickly. I think I'll speak to the men. You have got to take responsibility for your communication skills and listening, you know, like, and, you know, be prepared to meet that. And if you need, and, you know, be open to counseling or guidance or whatever you're drawn to that can help with that. If things are getting sort of troubled, if you like. And that would be the first thing. What were the other 2 that I'm trying to come up with? I'm just trying to think what else. I think maybe prompt me here, Amberlee. I'm just, because it's such a big question. I'm like, oh, yeah.
About was also self-development, like looking at yourself, reflecting self-development. That's something you said earlier, or the personal development.
Yeah.
Like actually implying it to your life, or.
Yeah, I think you know, I think as human beings, you know, male or female, but I mean men, you know, very much, you know, everyone talks about the male ego. Well, we've all got ego, whether you're male or female, obviously. But, you know, men can get a bit stuck on being right. It's like, guys, give it up, okay? It's just like, you can be right all the way till you hit the brick wall, brother. So, you know, your choice. So I think, you know, it's just like finding a way to be more open. I think there's definitely, you know, our upbringing, our society, I mean, it's changed a lot. And, you know, connecting to your feeling body with whatever way that, I mean, there's ways of doing that. There's men's circles. Like I'm involved in some men's circles. I've got a retreat coming up in a couple of weeks that I'm part of. It's not all about that, but I run a men's circle there, and just men feeling that they can be heard. And that's not going down to the pub and having a beer and talking about the footy, because that is not, you know, guys do that as like, oh, I think my marriage is ending. Oh, tough luck, mate. Have another beer. Well, that's not exactly helpful, right? You know, so finding other men that they could actually talk to at a deeper level, I think, you know, that's a growing thing. And I think that's something to encourage men to go out and find. There's the Mankind Project. There's other sort of things out there around that. And I think for women in relation to men in this is to actually, there's equal responsibility of understanding that how a man thinks differently. So as a woman, you know, like basically when a woman gets sort of unhappy with her man, the tendency will be to nag. Like if your woman's nagging you, you're just not doing something right. Like, and when I say right, you're not meeting her in some place, and it's her way of expressing that, if you like. Equally as a man, being really critical of your woman ain't gonna win you any brownie points either. So I think it's really us for you know, beholden on all of us to increase our emotional intelligence, if you like, you know, and so that we can have a more fluid conversation to understand that balance between masculine and feminine, which is different for all of us. And for men to feel like they can be heard, but equally that they need to listen with a different ear to a woman and understand what it is that makes a woman, as I say, feel safe, for example, or feel heard, or feel valued for who she is, not just being a good mum or, you know, being a great wife. Like, yeah, that's all fantastic, but literally, what is she into in life? Like Amberlee, like you saying, like, am I being seen for what my desires and interests and, you know, view of the world is? Like, that's really, really important.
How we met each other is through our educational platform, which is amazing because we both run online businesses. But also, you just mentioned your men's circles. If anybody wants to reach out to you, Anton, how do they go about it?
I guess the best thing is they could, you know, either send me a friend request on Facebook or message me, and it'll pop up in Messenger. I think that's probably but seeing we're on Facebook, by far the most direct and easy way. And yeah, I'd be happy to connect even in whatever way that is. Yeah. Like,
And it's thank you for being so honest and raw and being vulnerable. I know, like you just talked about the conditioning of society, and men are told that they're not meant to express their emotions, but it's really important that they do. And you've just talked about something that not many men, unfortunately, aren't brave enough to share because of society conditions. And I know that people that have watched this are thankful, not just men, women too. Like I've learned a lot, and it's going to change how I navigate my relationship with my husband too, and I really do appreciate that.
well, thank you, Amberlee. It's been great to be able to come on, and it was a big step for me, because I've also got my little professional, like, oh, I can't reveal all this to the world. It's like, Anton, get over it. People need to hear this. And when I've talked about my men's circle, for example, on Facebook, I just get this amazing response. I'm like, wow, there's obviously a real demand out there, and by women and men responding, going, wow, this is great. Because we all want to get along. We all want this to work. That's the fact.
Like you are being right now, the more authentic you are, the more people are attracted to you. Like, and we don't think that's the way it is, but it is. We want to be real, and when other people are doing it, it gives us permission to do it too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bet.
I'll let you go. Thank you for watching, everybody. And Anton, thank you very much. I really mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Amberlee. And yes, thanks to everyone who's been watching as we go along, or anyone who watches the replay. I really, that's great. And I hope you get sort of value out of it. Thanks, Amberlee.
Yeah, Anton. Bye. Bye, everybody.